Welcome back, endgame fans. The position that we're going to look at is from the game between Rudolf Charousek and Jackson Showalter, and it was an encounter in the 11th KSB Congress held at Cologne in 1898. The result of the game contributed to Charousek's joint second place in this tournament, behind the winner Amos Byrne. Now, we're very lucky to have a record of this endgame, because all of the score sheets were entrusted to Max Lang, best known for the opening the Max Lang attack. And Max Lang was going to write the tournament book, but unfortunately, due to a mishap, he lost all of the game scores. And so only a few of the encounters from this event survive. Now let's introduce the players. Rudolf Charousek was a very talented chap player who performed extremely well in international tournaments held in the late 1890s. But tragically, at the age of only 26, when considered to be one of the world's top 10, he fell victim to tuberculosis and died in April 1900. At the time of his death, the vaccine treatment pioneered by Robert Koch that would have saved his life was still in the early stages of development. Now, his opponent, Jackson Showalter, was a multiple United States champion and competed in a series of international tournaments, achieving good results. He won games against the world champions Wilhelm Steinitz and Emanuel Lasker, and scored victories against some of the other leading players of the late 19th and early 20th century, and was nicknamed the Kentucky Lion. Now, Showalter's wife, Nellie, has previously featured in the Waldsman Endgame video series. I referenced a match that Nellie played against Emanuel Lasker, where Lasker offered night odds, and won the contest 5-2. The story afterwards, whereby Lasker claimed these two losses were attributable to Nellie's ankle flashing, however, has apparently no basis in fact and is an internet hoax. So I'm pleased to correct that here. Okay, well, let's turn to the position. The ending is similar to another bishop ending that the Waldsman has presented, but in that ending, both sides had rook's pawns on opposite sides of the board, whereas here we're dealing with knight's pawns. So it might be interesting for you to compare this ending with the one that we've previously analysed together. Okay, so white Charousek to play is a pawn up, but it's clear that the G pawn is going to be exchanged for the black B pawn. So the issue is whether the resulting ending of bishop and B pawn versus bishop is won or not. And from here, Charousek continued bishop c4, and Showalter moved his attack bishop to the square g4. And now a question for you. Should white take the pawn and capture bishop takes b3? Now, if you'd like to try and work this out, pause the video here. Okay, well, welcome back if you decided to have a go at solving this problem. Now, there's some key information that is of great assistance in handling the position. The Russian endgame theorist Nikolai Grigoriev made a study of bishop and knight's pawn versus bishop, where the queening square is a different colour to the bishop's. And it's discussed with a correction by Khachatурov in Averbach's book on bishop endings, which is highly recommended reading. So to summarise Grigoriev's analysis, white wins if he can advance his pawn to b6 and reach a7 with his king before black's king reaches the b8 queening square. Now, it's going to take black at least 5 moves after capturing the g-pawn to make it to b8. But the white b-pawn is only on the second rank, and it must cross several light squares en route to queening. And the white king is going to have to support the bishop in driving black's bishop away from the b5 square. Note that b3 is not going to be a problem because pawns, of course, can move 2 squares from their initial start rank. So b5 is going to be a key square in this ending. And the white king is only going to be able to support the bishop from c5. And that's going to make it very difficult, therefore, to shoulder barge the black king and to prevent it going g5, f6, e7, d8, and then on to c8 and b8. So bearing these factors in mind, bishop takes b3, which is the move Charousek played, was a mistake. Now from here the game continued as follows. Showalter went after the g-pawn, he played king g6. White centralised the bishop with bishop d5. The pawn was captured, king takes pawn. White pushed b4. And now Showalter played the move bishop d7. Now that was a good move. It's much better than bishop e2 would have been, because now white gains some time. Bishop c4 attacks the bishop and stops it from guarding b5, so the bishop has to go back to g4. White goes king c5. Black goes bishop d7, which is the square the bishop should have gone to initially. The white king is aggressive and attacks the bishop, and the bishop has to retreat to e8. And now white can play bishop d5 with the threat of bishop c6. And as we'll see in comparison with the game, this line is much better for white because he's gained several tempi. Okay, so instead of bishop e2, it's much more accurate to play bishop d7 straight away. The point is that after white goes king e5, trying to shoulder barge the black king, then black can go bishop b5. And that's the right square to move the bishop to, because it gives black the option of stopping the pawn move b5 by occupying one of 2 diagonals. The a4 e8 diagonal or the a6 f1 diagonal. Okay, well, as mentioned earlier, in order to eject the bishop, white has to move his king to c5. So he goes king d6, but the problem is that black can now go king f6 because the blockade has been lifted. White goes king c5. And here, Showalter went back to d7 with his bishop. Now, in contrast to the previous position, he could have gone bishop e2 here. And I think the defence is easier from e2, provided the defender is aware of the following key point. So after white plays bishop c4, the black bishop now has the choice of 4 squares. It can go to d1, f3, g4 or h5. Now 2 of these squares draw, whereas the other 2 lose. So the question is, well, which are the drawing squares? Now in bishop endings, it's quite common for you to have to foresee a couple of moves ahead. So you have to ask, well, what work does my defending bishop have to do in this ending? And here, the black bishop has to go to a square where next move it can contest the a4 e8 diagonal, because if otherwise, then white is going to have time to play the shoulder barge king d6, and king d6 will be possible because black doesn't have a bishop move that prevents the pawn advance b5. So either bishop d1 or bishop h5 will draw, whereas bishop f3 or bishop g4 will both lose. Now let's just verify this. Let's play bishop d1. And bishop d1 on the face of it seems the least probable drawing move, but it's perfectly fine because next move the black bishop can go to a4 and a4 guards b5. And that's exactly what would happen if white were to play king d6. Black would go bishop a4. So white has to play b5. And now black has got a free move and he can play king e7. Remember, black wants to get his king to b8. White doesn't have anything better than b6. And black goes king d8, carrying on with his plan. And he's threatening to go to c8. And if the black king gets to c8, nothing is going to stop it from getting to b8. So white has to prevent it with the move bishop a6. Now black can occupy the long diagonal, preventing b7. And if white goes bishop b5, intending bishop c6, then black will go king c8, and his king reaches b8, and the ending is a draw. Okay, let's just go back. Okay, so bishop d1 seems an unnatural move, but it draws easily. And in contrast, the move bishop f3 seems very natural. It seems a good idea to get on the long diagonal, but this move is wrong and would lose because it gives white time to play the shoulder barge king d6. There's no move that gets the bishop on the a4 e8 diagonal that doesn't involve losing the bishop. I mean, black can't play bishop c6, so he's in a bind. If he plays, say, bishop e7, white simply pushes. The bishop marks time and comes back, and white goes b6. Black marks time again, but now white has the decisive move bishop b5. And ejects the bishop and will be able to queen the pawn and win the game. Okay. Let's just look at these moves again. Okay. Right, so from here we've established that bishop e2 would have been a drawing move. But there was nothing wrong with the move played. Showalter went for bishop d7 instead. But after white replied bishop c6, a critical position was reached. And the question is, well, where should the attacked black bishop retreat to now? Now Showalter unfortunately chose the move bishop c8, and this is a losing move. And it loses because Charousek can now achieve the ideal king a7, b6 setup. The setup that Grigoriev demonstrated was winning. And from here, the game finished b5. White pushes. Black goes king e7, the familiar plan. But now white can go king b6. He can get in front of the pawn because black has got no move that attacks the b5 pawn, and that's why sticking the bishop on c8 was a bad idea and a losing move. Black goes king d8, white goes king a7, black goes king c7. So white can't go b6 check immediately because he loses the bishop, and so he simply moves it out of harm's way. Let's say to g2. Black can't move his bishop really, because b6 check and b7 would win, so he has to give way with his king. And now after b6, the ideal setup is reached, and Showalter in fact resigned the game at this point, because if his king gives way again, let's say it goes to e7, then white simply plays bishop f1, and then after, let's say, king d8, white goes bishop a6. and that forces the bishop to either give way or exchange itself. If it exchanges, bishop takes bishop, king takes bishop. Black is just one move too late. King c8 is met by king a7, and the b pawn queens. So bishop c8 was very unfortunate for Showalter, because black could draw with any move that enables the bishop to attack b5 next move. For example, black could go bishop g4, and after b5 he goes king e7. And now white can't go king b6 because bishop e2 attacks the b pawn, and black could then give up the bishop for the pawn, and there would be a draw with reduced material. So white has to go b6, black goes king d8, white prevents the move king c8 by going bishop b7, but now black goes bishop e2. And if you study this position, it's clear that there's just no way that the white king can ever make it to a7 from here, because the black king and black bishop are just barring the way. Okay, so returning to the start position, we've discovered that bishop takes pawn only draws. So congratulations if you figured out that too. Well, the question then is, what else can white try? Is there a way to win the b3 pawn under more advantageous circumstances? And it turns out that there is. Now, the other feature of the position to note is that if you can take the bishops off the board, then the king and pawn ending is always going to be a win for white. And this is because the b pawn is on the start rank, it's on b2. While that makes it more troublesome to queen with the bishops on, because there are more light squares that the pawn has to traverse, in terms of the king and pawn ending, things are going to be much easier for white, because having the pawn on b2 means that there are pawn moves in reserve. And so this is going to make it possible for white to win king and pawn endings, even if black manages to get his king in front of the passed pawn. So instead of taking the pawn, it would have been much better for white to go king e3 here. Black attacks the g pawn with king g6. White defends g5 with king f4. And now, since white is threatening to take the b pawn, the black bishop has to go to d1. And notice how the bishop is now operating on a very restricted diagonal, just has the squares c2 and d1. It has to shuffle between the two for as long as white is attacking the b pawn with his bishop. So for here, white goes bishop d5. Black only has one move, he has to go bishop c2. And white gives a check, goes bishop e4 check. And the king and pawn ending would be lost if black were to exchange bishops here. Let's just verify that. Bishop takes bishop, king takes bishop, king takes pawn, white king goes after the b pawn, king d3, the black king comes over to the queen side, king f5, king c4, king e6, take the pawn, king d6 say, king b4, king c6, and now king a5. And if black goes king b7, white goes king b5. And white is going to gain control of one of the key squares, a6, b6 or c6, and that will enable him to advance the pawn, and it will be a standard one king and pawn ending. White has the opposition here, and is hopeless for black. Okay, but black of course doesn't have to exchange bishops. He can go king g7, and now white can't take the bishop on c2 because the king is outside of the square. It can't stop the pawn from queening. So white goes king e3, and now white is threatening to take the bishop because the white king can get to d2 in time to round up the c-pawn. So black has to go to d1. The white bishop resumes its attack on the b-pawn, goes bishop d5. Black plays bishop c2. White goes king d2. Black goes king g6. And now there's a little trick in the position. White can go bishop to c4. And here it's bad news. Black does not have a good move here. Relatively best is to take the pawn, but now white goes bishop d3, and black is unable to avoid the exchange of bishops, and we know that the king and pawn ending is always won for white because of the reserve pawn moves that white has if he needs to gain your position. So that is winning. Let's just set up the position again. Okay, so instead of going bishop c2 here, black had an alternative defense. He could try the move king g7. White again plays king e3, opening up possibilities. Black resumes the attack on the g-pawn, and now the move bishop f3 presents black with Morton's fork. He has two options, but both of them lose. If he goes bishop c2, then white can play bishop e4 check, and this forces the exchange of bishops, because if black takes the pawn, white plays bishop takes bishop, and after pawn takes bishop he has king d2. Or if black takes the bishop, king takes bishop, we have a one king and pawn ending. Alternatively, if black simply takes white's bishop, after king takes bishop, king takes pawn, the king and pawn ending is again won. King e4, king f6, king d5, king e7, and then king c4, rounding up the b-pawn. And again, the reserve pawn moves make this easily winning. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed analysing this ending and learned some useful things from it, namely factors to bear in mind. If the bishops are kept on the board, white has to get king a7 and b6 in order to win the ending, but also the fact that if the b-pawn is far back, forcing an exchange of bishops will generate a one king and pawn ending. And in this example, the restricted diagonal that the bishop operated on made it impossible for black to avoid the exchange of bishops. Thanks for watching.